Okay, class. This is just a short video about the site called Pueblo Bonito, which is in Chaco Canyon. And I'll show you the location of that in a moment. Um, I just want to point out, though, that we talked about Mesa Verde in the last class, and I just wanted to show you another important North American site. We haven't had time yet to go to the Central or South America. We'll have the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas and the exciting finds that'll come a little bit later down there, later in the class, that is. But I did want to point this site out, a very famous site of Pueblo Bonito in the Chaco Canyon. This really, really big semicircular archaeological site. Just so you know where it is here, it's in the northern part of New Mexico. And on the right is a map of the canyon, and it shows you where Pueblo Bonito is in relationship to the canyon. I just want to point out there's a lot of other sites up and down this canyon. This Pueblo, however, is the most famous of them. And once again, I will be returning to this. I just wanted to introduce some of you to another important North American site. Here is a view of it from the top. Though, unlike Mesa Verde, it is not built into a cliff. It's still at the bottom of one. So if you're coming from the area, from the top area of the slide, you don't even see this site until you're on top of it. And that's good for protective purposes because if people don't know you're there, they don't know you're there. But then if they got to this place, they would still be walled. Now, there was a time, I think it was in the 17th century, 18th or 17th century, when this site was still occupied, that it was larger than New York City. And so it was a big urban center, like we'll get in Central and South America as well. I do want to point out here that on the center part of the slide, there's been a bit of a cliff collapse that has destroyed some of the site, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But I do want to show you a map here of the site, and we can see it's chock-a-block full of kivas that I mentioned in the last class, and I'll review a little bit here as well. But there's also just tons and tons and tons of rooms outside the kivas as well. And so, there's a bunch of different things going on here. This is a reconstruction of what the site was like. Remember, all these rooms and kivas would have been covered over. Would have had some wooden frame on the top, and then you could put, wattle and daub, that is to say, some plants and mud and for the roof. But I want to show you that's what it would look like when all the roofs were up. But I do want to point to the sort of top center of the reconstruction here. And you can see better on these slides where this cliff collapse has been and has knocked out a little bit of the site. This is a major site. If you ever have a chance to go to New Mexico, you want to go here. It's out in the middle of nowhere, for us, that is. But it's a really, really nice archaeological site. You can spend a day there. And once again, just the kivas, they'd have a fire pit. And there was a hole in the ceiling to let smoke out, but it could also the smoke could go through the ventilator shaft. And there's that sipapu, that hole that we're not very sure what's going on there. Perhaps it's holding up a pole to hold up the roof. Who knows? There is also the deflector blocking some of the smoke from going straight out, or I guess the wind coming down and blowing straight in and blowing the fire out. But in any case, it has many kivas, and we saw them at Mesa Verde, and we'll talk about them more when we return to the Americas. And this just has really spectacular architecture, just something else. It's like walking through Pompeii. It's just really, really amazing. And once again, here I show you a plan on the bottom here, but I just also want to show you all these doorways that were made out of this, this sort of hammered brick, field stones that were sort of hammered into place. I believe it's local schists there, and we can see that they have these hallways that go from one room to the next on the left. On the top center, we have these T-shaped doorways, which is very much a southwestern thing. These types of doorways and or windows. But in any case, we see multi-story walls, so they had at least second stories, if not third stories. And once again, just to show you the complexity of the architecture at the site. This is the Great Kiva, and this one was massive. And remember that bench around it at the bottom there, those were to seat people. And this one, could easily seated 100 or some people at one time. So it was used as a place for people to gather. What precisely is going on there, it's uncertain. And then in the Great Kiva here, there's all these other pits as well. Here's just another shot of it in relationship to the architecture. Just to give you an idea, once again, just how sophisticated it is. Notice with the Great Kiva, look at the steps coming down at the center of the slide, and the person standing there on the bottom, or is that a person? No, so that's just a stone. But in any case, if I were to stand there, I would be as tall as, let's say, the first 2 or 3 steps. So it's big. Now, one of the other things that was found here, I've pointed out before, is just wonderful pottery. Just it's really spectacular pottery from the Southwest. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, the object of collectors, and that causes looting. But here we see from the old excavations, how this cache of pottery was found, and it carried chocolate. As I mentioned in the last class, chocolate was a very important drink, and we'll see through the Aztecs just thought they were just amazed by it. It was the drink of the gods, and so it's a New World item. Remember that, right? Prior to the discovery of the New World, there wasn't any chocolate around, but then it became quite popular. And you can see this wonderfully painted pottery on the right. These sort of long, tall tubes. And as one final point, excavation point, I want to show you rather, is that when you take photographs, you have to number all the objects and take notes on what each number stands for. So you delicately clean off the pottery. You set up a ladder or something for the photographer to stand on. Now this one, I have no idea why they're repeating the numbers so often. 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4. Maybe it's the types of pottery or the painted decoration. I don't know. Don't let that confuse you, right? The point is, you photograph a lot and take a lot of notes. In a modern excavation, this deposit would probably take you weeks just to get out of the ground. You'd be measuring every pot. And then you would be taking the soils out from inside before you cleaned it. So you could have a residue analysis done of the soils in the inside. And they did some of that already, and that's how we know it was chocolate inside of them. And then, carefully lift one at a time, hopefully not breaking. If they do break, you got to record all the fragments, photograph it, all this sort of stuff. And this thing would take, as I said, weeks to excavate, and just tons and tons and tons of notes. If I encourage you all to go on an archaeological project, but just know that these excavations can get very, very tedious at times, and things that look really exciting can end up consuming your life. But in any case, there's Pueblo Bonito, and we'll be coming back to the Americas later on in the class.